Hello, welcome to my video diary that I'm keeping for you. Hello, welcome to my QCS marking. Hello, here I am with the next installment of my QCS marking video diary for you. So we're now on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of marking, including the training time that we had. And I'm definitely building up quite a collection of pieces of advice, strategies, ideas, and things that are going to put you at the very top in terms of your performance and what you can do with the knowledge and skills that you have. I'm gathering those together nicely. What I wanted to share with you today is what I get a lot of questions about from students, and today particularly really kind of brought this to the fore because we're at the stage now where we're looking at different rounds of marking and we're moving on to the final stage of marking. So I thought I'd talk to you a bit about that because lots of people are really curious about exactly what goes into the marking, what stages their pieces of work and their test papers go through, and they want to know how it's done, what goes on behind the scenes, how many times it gets marked, does it get marked properly, how many people look at it. So here's what happens. Okay. Every single script, that's an exam paper, it's what we call an exam paper, is a script, gets marked twice by markers like me, okay? The kind of everyday markers that have been trained up in it. Our marking then gets what we call cross-marked with an immerser, like our supervisors, the people that are in charge of that unit and train us in that unit and help devise the mark scheme for that unit. So they are the top-notch people for that section of the paper. So it's been marked twice by markers. Whoa. Okay, we had a little camera fall there. So it gets marked twice by markers like me, and then it gets marked again by an immerser, a supervisor, and that's to check my marking. Okay, so every marker's marking gets checked. So then they can check that we are marking to the mark scheme and we're marking accurately. So essentially, each script has now been marked 3 times. Okay. Then, what then goes on to happen is all of our mark sheets are put through the system and read by a computer, and that particular grade and that particular mark for each and every question gets logged against that student. Then what happens is, you remember I said there's 2 markers that mark each paper. If those 2 marks do not align and those markers did not give that particular question exactly the same mark, it goes through to the next round, and that's what's called referee marking. And what they do is they pick out the best markers from the pool that they've got, from the section that they've got, from the collection that they've got, and they pull out the best ones. That means people that mark at a good pace, because they don't want people to take forever over it, but also people that have been seen to be very accurate. So when they've been cross-marked by the immersers, and people's marks that line up well with everyone else's, they're the people that get selected. So they kind of take off the cream of the crop, and I am glad to say that I have been in that group each time I've marked, and they then do referee marking. So that means those scripts that got 2 different marks from the 2 different markers originally get marked again, and this is called referee marking. We're just getting to that stage now. So as of tomorrow, we're going to be starting referee marking. So that means any scripts, any papers that got 2 different marks from 2 different markers, they go back in the pool and they get marked again by those best markers. So essentially, every script gets marked twice. Your paper will definitely get marked twice. If it gets the same mark for that particular question twice, brilliant, it goes through, you get that mark. Potentially it might get marked 3 times because yours might be picked out as the sample to check the immersers, check the markers work. Are you following this? And potentially it might get marked another time if those first 2 markers did not give it the same mark and it needs to go to referee marking. So everything will get marked twice. It might get marked 3 times, and it could possibly, but probably not likely, get marked 4 times. So, like I've said before, it's absolutely going to make sure that you guys get the best mark or the right mark that your piece of work deserves. But this leads me on to one further point that I want to really not share with you today, because a lot of you have heard me say this before, whether you've been in the 10-week program or had any of my free resources or been on any of my grade transformation seminars. This is the point that we're humans, we're not robots, okay? We kind of feel like robots a little bit when we're studying there marking script after script after script, but we're not. We're human beings. And sometimes judgments can differ. Sometimes people can miss things, and that's why everything gets marked twice, and then there's referee marking. So what you need to do is make sure that it is as easy as possible for those markers to give you the marks that you can achieve. That means structuring your work really well, writing it really clearly in terms of your language and how you structure your sentences. And lastly, making sure that you follow the guidelines or the structure of the question. So for example, one of the pieces I'm marking at the moment has 3 sections to one of the parts. And for those students that they might write an introductory sentence, although they don't have to, because it's not a massive extended response, but it is kind of an extended response. If they can say, right, for point 1, these are my points, for point 2, these are my points, and for point 3, this is what I want to say. Let me tell you, it is so much easier to mark that piece of work, and it's so much easier to make sure that I don't miss anything they might have said that's going to give them some credit. For those students who kind of go all over the shop and they kind of go back to point 1, but then they started on point 3 and then they kind of tried to interweave it into something else, it's much more difficult for me and any other marker to pick up every little piece of information or point that they make along the way. And it can get missed, and I'll have to reread it 2, maybe 3 times. But that still makes it very difficult for the marker. But some of the ones that get the highest marks are the easiest to read, because you go, yes, brilliant, they've got that, yes, brilliant, they've got that, yes, brilliant, they do that, bang, 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 top grade. Okay, so make sure you structure it well, you write it clearly, and you stick to the structure that the question gives you. Those are my pieces of advice for today. Very soon I'm going to come back with you with some of my top hints, tips, and strategies that I've gathered as a result of doing this round of marking this year for QCS tests here in Queensland, the Year 12 tests that they take. So stay tuned and look out for the next episode. See you soon!